Alright, those guys are now up. So I guess they wouldn't matter. I normally hit that stuff before I turn on the Instagram. There it is. Copy link. And we'll get started here in just a second. Okay, activate. There we go. Turn that on. And we're ready to roll. All right, let's get paint, huh? So, got my references up here, and I was gonna do. I kind of like this lighting situation I saw in this comic thing, so I'm going to set that up for the sky here, and then kind of work my way down and forward. That would be the big plan. In case you're wondering about the magnets, my desk is actually up at an angle, and so I use magnets, put a big piece of metal on my board. Let's see. Oh, we got ourselves a Chinese bot over there. Let's delete that real quick. There you are. Bam. All right. Where's this at too? All right, good. That's clean. Yeah, I have to turn that on. So, let's see, where's the larger brush? Where did I? Oh, there it is. Take it out. Larger, round. Yeah. So back to front. This is my reference here for the color. Let's actually move that over here. It's next to my nature reference. I'll probably push this stuff a little bit more. I saw a great tip a long time ago. Basically, you keep retarder medium in your. I'll probably just move this over here. Guess there's something in that shot. You keep retarder medium in your in a spray bottle rather than mixing it in usual way. Use spray bottles periodically to keep them wet. Actually, what I might do is just so I get a little more of the palette in here. With this over here. It's a little better staging, I guess, for the over the desk camera. Need to move that up a little bit. There we go. All right, so you got the rock here. We're going to show more of the sky than the reference shows. Oh, the magnet thing? Yeah, so basically I did is I have this gigantic drafting table that I bought off of Facebook Place. It's like a $1,000 plus drafting table, but I got it for $100. There was some architecture construction company or whatever getting rid of it, and if you're looking for an excuse to use Facebook, Marketplace is actually really nice to have access to. I basically use Facebook for two things now. One is finding it's an Xterra group, so if my car is having problems, I go on there and see what people have to say first before I go talk to a mechanic or do something myself. And the other one's Facebook Marketplace. And it's nice because it's easier to find kind of local stuff. But yeah, so anyway, I bought this table and I was like, yeah, I would love it to be magnetized. Actually, it's got a nice like green drafting table. It's really clean, kind of the soft vellum on top. But I want to do is put it upright so I could use magnets to and put things on it this way. And so went to this place called Metal Mart, and you can buy custom cuts of metal. It's used for making all kinds of different stuff. So I ordered a sheet of gauged steel, as thin as I could get it, and put that on top of my desk. And then I've got a piece of angled aluminum that holds it in place. And I actually put that too. Yeah, I saw that in a YouTube video, someone talking about that. I was like, oh, that's a helpful idea. So I'm not I don't consider myself an acrylic expert. But the other thing I did on my table is I installed a second piece of angled aluminum that then catches stuff at the base of it. So I can rest my palette down there or other things and not have to worry about them, falling on top of stuff. All right, we're going to throw where this light is going to catch. Let's see, where's her portrait? So her hair's going to catch it, obviously. But yeah, the spray retardant thing's nice. So I just have a jar. I labeled it. I used my handy white marker. Put it's about 10% of it I fill up with the retarder, and then the rest is water, and then I just shake it. So that way, I want to make sure I keep it diluted. You don't want too much of it in the paint, otherwise it can, I guess, really negatively impact how well it does that. The other thing that kind of helped me out too with acrylics is I've been using these heavy body paints, and I think that was a mistake. So I'm gradually going to be switching over to the soft body. But I also picked up this high flow medium, which I think is basically water with retarder in it. I'm sure if we were to check the chemicals on here, if it lists them, but it makes the heavy body paint just flow a lot nicer. So I squeezed that out on my palette. My palette's just a cooking tray, like for baking cookies or whatever, and I put some paper towels, shop towels in here in this case, and wax paper. And so that's all my palette is. Yeah, so spray retardant. I spray it on my palette periodically, and helps keep the paint wet. So try to get that white on there more intensely. But yeah, so I started this one a week ago, and I haven't touched it since because I was again just completely out of it for the week. So um, I did do some online chores. So I cleaned up my portfolio website. So that's good. Um, that needed doing a while ago. So that has been taken care of. Um, even updated the shop on there a little bit. There's a couple more things I need to do today for it, but I'll be all the way done, I think. Make sure we silhouette this really well. put a mechanical arm on her. So, but yeah. Anyway, so I haven't really been posting all week and just been busy being sick. Kind of threw things off a bit, but at least this wasn't as bad as when I first had COVID a few years ago. It was this was this is mild relative to that. Fill my water tank in the near future. So your hair is going to come down to there approximately. It's always a good idea to kind of overlap around as you kind of step forward. That way you're kind of paint over it anyway, so might as well integrate it better with the surroundings. I have to grab a screenshot off my own live just to be sure about what I put down. I don't remember everything that's on there. Let's get some orange out. Meanwhile, my poor dog gets to sleep. While his insane human gets to talk to himself over here. Right? So I was trying to get for the effect first that I'm looking for here. I can always resolve details later. Let's see, I want to get some of this blue here. Get a purple in it. Before I kind of get too carried away. Stuff. Right. I'll try to get some stuff hanging off of this stick. Morning. Welcome back. One thing I will say for the new version of COVID, it does have a cool name. You know, Cicada. Um, which I guess is nice. You know, it's good to have some branding. So I haven't done any regular art stuff all week long. So it's I did use the time to rework my portfolio website. Did a bunch of changes to that. Including recording a couple of demos because I have like a little tiny brush shop on there, so I added a brush set of a need to add review and then add a file shaper. And so I made a few little videos. Well, I made 2 videos. Well, 3. Yeah, so I made 3. I made 3 videos the other day when I was feeling better, starting to feel better. So one is like describing the brushes and kind of going through each of them. And then another one is why I'm going to use a digital painting program on my iPad. I'm probably using Infinite Painter. And I go over why I do that. It's actually a pretty long video. I was surprised, 27 minutes long. And why I like it over the more popular painting application, Procreate. And then, what's the third one? The third one was how to install brushes. And then I also posted link to the video where I did a demo at Lightbox a few years ago. So uh, yeah, but I spent the whole week just like reworking my hello over there on Kick. Yeah, so I spent the whole week working on that. So the Rainland Studios website, and it's a nice little pop up for the comic project I'm working on. So if you head over to that site, um, you can get on the mailing list real easy. And then yeah, because they released basically a new version of the software I use to build my website. So it's a WordPress website. I use a plugin called Elementor, which is like a visual site editor. I did some key art and storyboarding for a series of shorts. It was back in 2016, so it's been a while. But I did a series of storyboards and key art stuff and concept art for some shorts that they decided to not make. So um, I'm doing much better over there on Kick. It's DBD, to be detailed. I guess so, yeah. But yeah, so yeah, Rainland Studios. I that's what I've been doing all week, been working on that. Yeah, but so it's stuff I can't ever show because they killed the project. It's on my hard drive, but some of it I like still, some of it I don't. But it's still a fun project to work on. But it's funny because I've never ever played any of Riot's games, like ever. That tends to be true of a lot of like the freelance things I've done over the years. I've noticed is that um, like when I worked in-house at a game studio, Disney Interactive, a long time ago, like I never played any of the games I worked on, like ever. Or I did freelance for EA or other people, like just never. I was there just to make it look good. I didn't really care that much about the game. It's DBD. Oh, I don't know about that. Yeah, what I'm painting, you mean? Is that the question I'm being asked over there on Kick? Um, so basically, what I do is I've been the whole long story. Basically, I've reassessed my relationship with acrylic paint and decided I should do more with it after teaching a class last fall with the university I'm at and where I teach. And so I wanted to start doing some more with it. So I've been doing a series of what I call mixed reference pieces. So I'm basically taking reference that I have access to. So whether it's something I find on Pinterest or it's a pose set that I bought, online, Gumroad or ArtStation or the former Flip to Normals, etc. And basically taking a set of images and then blending them together into a new image. So it's not really like a true background any there. Uh, Adventure Time. Okay. I've never done that one either. um, I kind of wish I played more games, but I've got so many things I'm trying to do for myself creatively that you know, I just don't have time for it. I don't know if that's good or bad. Like, actually, I think it's good to participate in culture, and games are definitely an important part of culture these days. Have been for a long time, but yeah. So basically, I've been doing a series of these where I'm trying to do these very finished small pictures. Originally, I was just going to do a bunch of simple ones in my sketchbook. So this is actually the last half of a page of a sketchbook I have. It's a heavy duty like Bristol board type paper, and this is the very last page of that. And so it's actually last half of a page. So it's a really nice paper, and then I just done a sketch on it, sealed it, which is what I did a week ago, and then yeah, I did do some cards actually a very long time ago, but it wasn't for Magic. It was a different company. I've thought about applying to do some Magic the Gathering stuff. Actually, one of our former adjunct professors, she left to go be an art director over there. So part of what I'm gonna do is once I finish this one, I'm gonna start doing some concept pieces for my comic project, kind of a la style of like a Ralph McQuarrie or a Doug Chang with acrylic paint. But I'm also gonna style them in a way that they would work as Magic card portfolio pieces. So um, and that way I could send some stuff off to them. They pay okay, and then there's kind of problems that people don't like about how they handle rights. Where basically they, unlike other publishers, or most publishers, you don't keep your rights to your images with them. So with other publishers, like if you do a book cover or a children's book or whatever, you're selling actually a license to use your art. And I think with Magic the Gathering, it's all work for hire. Um, and so basically, they keep all the legal rights to your work. They do let you sell your originals or make prints or do other things with it. Uh, but they don't. But you don't get to keep the actual. They don't like pay you every time they print it, which I don't like as much. Um, I almost prefer like a lower pay in exchange for that. So, um, but yeah, so but that's how they handle that, and so I have mixed feelings about that. I don't like it. Um, so like when I worked for Riot Games a long time ago, like they have total ownership over the work I did for them, right? So they can take it, change it, manipulate it, throw it away, tell me what I can do with it, whether I can show it or not, which I've asked in the past about. Um, Perhaps you give. Well, I don't know how they handle their rights either. I'm pretty sure that's all. A lot of the Japanese stuff is done kind of in house, so that would also be work for hire situations. Like if you work for Hallmark Cards in their office, um, out in what was it, St. Louis or wherever they're located, um, they they own it because they're paying you a salary. But yeah. Hello. Thank you for the sparkly stuff over there on Kick. But yeah, so that's the and then I think each card pays around like I think the current pay rate is like 1,800 per card or something like that, which it sounds like a lot, but it's really not that much if you're a freelancer. One of the problems with the last century going into this one is the value of illustration really got lowered, um, starting with photography. And I think digital also lowered the value of doing illustration because it's so easy to use, compared to like this, right? So, like if I'm unhappy with the color, it's easy to go through and just like throw a color layer or an overlay layer on top and to like instantly tweak everything. And so it's just objectively easier to use than traditional media. Um, and so I think partly because it's gotten so much easier, a lot of people have gotten into the markets who wouldn't have if they had to use real media and had to develop, those kinds of skills that are much harder to develop. Not that they couldn't develop them, but it is much, much more challenging to use, oil paint or acrylic paint or whatever. Like it's just like it's not even an argument worth having with people. It's not that digital doesn't have its own challenges, but it's just faster and easier. And so because of that, there's a lot more of it, and that always lessens the value of any kind of commodity in the market. Yeah, it's the best part of it too. It's because there's so many people doing digital, and it's so easy to use. Like you really have to stand out. Like I like to say, when I was graduating from college in 2004, like you could easily get a job at a game company doing anything, whether it's concept art or 3D modeling or texturing or whatever. If you had like some good figure drawings, like that was like the minimum standard. Like, oh, you can draw good, you're in. And now you got to be working at like Feng Zhu levels. They like to say, when you apply, like that's the minimum standard is Feng Zhu. And he's not like the best concept artist ever, but he was very public online about his process, and he's got all these really great YouTube videos. I've heard some interesting things in the background about him that are concerning, but you really got to hit the ground running. Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely, because like there's no undo, first of all, right? You can't rescale your image like I can't take her and say, "Oh, I don't like the size." I have to go. I can't do that here at all instantaneously. And there's a lot of speed things you can do, like changing the values and things like that. Um, yeah, anybody equivocating, saying that they're equal in difficulty, just doesn't know what they're talking about. They've never gotten skilled at traditional media. I have seen people who work really fast in traditional media, but um, but if they had gotten into doing digital, they'd be even faster. I think the closest thing you can get to maybe making any kind of comparison is if you're a digital artist that only uses one layer. Just today I was talking to Ian McCaig last year when he came out to our university um, to do some presentations on that. He saying he likes to, when he does his digital work, like he likes to work in one layer most of the time, unless he has like some other reason to not do that. Because it makes it, well, part of the reason when you work in multiple layers, you kind of draw behind what's in front of you, and that can make things feel somewhat disconnected. So basically, it feels like it's something that doesn't feel natural to the image, unless you're working like photographically or something. Maybe that works better. But and it's not that I don't. It's not that I have like a big problem with digital necessarily. I look at a lot of artists and I'll see them kind of basically doing the same image over and over digitally. Um, and it just feels kind of like why put all that time into the digital once you've gotten a certain level of proficiency with it. um why not get into the analog, and rather than just keep making the same image over and over again digitally. Like there's some concept artists, and I'll see them drawing basically the same spaceship or the same character or the same scene over and over and over again. Um, they use the same shape language, the same techniques, the same line weights, the same brushes, the same effects, like over and over and over again. I just gotta wonder how that's gotta be really tedious. Like I would get really bored if I do get bored doing that kind of thing. So I'm always like trying to learn some new things. Like I've got my airbrush kit over here, which I may use in this picture. Um, break these shapes up back here a little bit. It's like I mastered a method where I basically paint with render layers digitally. So it's a sequence of layers that I like to use, and it kind of gives a very 3D effect. If you go to my portfolio site, there's like this salamander uh, slash axolotl thing sort of on there, and I use that in there. It's very funny because you watch it, it's like, oh, you go from flats to shadows to ambient occlusion to all these different layers, and it has this very kind of strong, almost 3D rendered look. But you kind of go back down to the base layer, and it's just like it's really, really flat because it's just flat color. And it's like that's a nice thing in digital because it can just go in there. I don't have to change any of the pose or the drawing. I can just adjust colors and come up with variations very, very quickly and easily just by changing those base colors. So it definitely has its advantages. Um, but I think in a lot of ways, I think a lot of art students and art programs should reevaluate their relationship with digital. Not that they should get rid of it entirely, or even like make it the smallest part of the program that they have. But I do think like the schools should definitely spend a lot more time focusing on analog, the traditional media. So we've been talking about in our program a lot. Some of them say we should do it because of AI. So like there's professors that I work with who are very much pro AI, which I'm afraid I understand. I don't think I want to understand why, but they argue, oh yeah, we should definitely do more traditional because we need to develop more hand skills so that when they're using generative AI, they're more capable at it. And I just look at that like, well, you don't think you understand the purpose of that software is to get rid of artists, period. Like, it doesn't, they aren't going to want to need you, period. Like, they want to get you out of the equation. And that's the point of it. But they disagree. They're always like, no, Peter, don't be so silly. So dramatic about it. Even if it was pretty obvious to me. But yeah. But I can't. People who've attached it, like James Gurney. There's the guy, right? His last email that he sent out, because I'm on his email list, like a good person should be, right? Be on James Gurney's email list. He's a really great illustrator. He's had a big impact on illustrators' education for arts and all that. And he posted a conversation he had with Claude. Talking to the bot, because he likes the AI. And that just makes me sad. It's like, here's this guy who's built his whole career on applying your imagination, and he likes the AI. He thinks we should be focusing on that in school. He wrote a whole thing on what schools should be teaching, and I just see this stuff as a massive bubble where I think there could be maybe some limited utility from generative AI for certain kinds of purposes, but it has no place at all in visual arts. And in education, especially. It's harmful. And that's been kind of shown over and over and over again how bad it is for people to use. And like, it's not secret information anymore. It's out there in the open. The studies are unambiguous. And whatever people may think the benefits are from it, I think they're far outweighed by the harm it causes. And even if you don't factor in like environmental questions, it harms the user. Like, it makes the user dumber, less capable, less thoughtful. It tricks them into thinking that they're right about things when they are not. In fact, what they found is they did a study recently, and I think it was 70 to 80% of people who use it, they just do what the bot says, or they believe what it says, even if it's wrong. They just accept its authority. Which is terrifying, I think. So that's one of the reasons I've also wanted to lean back into traditional media, like acrylics here. And I want to do other mediums too, but I want to do like a whole series of these things first. Really invest focused time on this project. But because I'm looking at this generative AI, I'm like, well, what if you look at that, because people are like, well, I use digital and it's got all these tools and it's just a tool, which is probably one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard. But like, I've had people tell me, well, use a ruler, so that's just like generative AI. It's just a tool. And like, people have said that to my face personally. Like, that's just silly. But yeah, so the generative AI thing's kind of made me think about digital in a new way too, where what if, I've said this before in here before, but you never know who's new. But what if using digital has actually harmed the users too, or focusing on it, like making that the emphasis of everything? This is why I put up my digital brushes for sale, but yeah, but what if, like, emphasizing it has actually caused harm? because when you do things that are more challenging, you experience more growth in your intellect, right? So if you just do things that are easy that you already know how to do, then you stay kind of the same place. So I will say that it's one thing, if you're trying to learn like Blender for doing concept art, at least that is like intellectually challenging because you have to keep track of so many things. You have to understand the software, and it's any of that 3D stuff can be very challenging to use. Some of them are easier, but yeah, it definitely takes there's definitely a learning curve to it. But I look at it, I'm like, well, what if we've actually harmed human creativity by emphasizing digital concept art, digital illustration, and digital this and digital that? Um, what if people have become artists, have become less creative, more productive in a sense that they make more stuff, but they've actually become less creative because the tools that they use don't compel their cognitive development as much as they would if they were using traditional tools. Um, and the looks I get for that at work, with other professors who've invested heavily in digital for the last 20 plus years. Um, but some of them are saying, hey, well, what if we did kind of shift back towards re-emphasizing analog and traditions around analog? I always prefer analog over traditional just because but so I'm trying to get some people to think a little bit differently about things. It doesn't mean like getting rid of it, but just feel like we could craft better students by emphasizing the real stuff, the non-algorithmic. So that's one of the things I'm thinking too, is like, what if the more algorithmic something becomes, the less unique, right? So the less authentic, the less original. So because when you use a digital brush, right, it's basically, for the most part, there's some exceptions to this, but for the most part, it's like a stamp that repeats itself. So you're literally just like stamping on a shape onto your surface over and over again, and it follows an algorithmic process for doing that. You can have it rotate randomly and do other bunch of things, but it's all strictly algorithmic. And I do wonder, sometimes if maybe part of why digital work kind of reduces itself to a mean, not a meme, but a mean, like a standard in between of things, an average to a certain degree, is that algorithmic nature of the process that's embedded in the medium itself. And there's ways of overcoming it. Like I've seen people do, like I saw a Bobby Chu thing once where he was like drawing over, using masking layers to draw over scanned in papers so that had different effects on them, ink and brushes, different, white ink and some other things. And I tried that out. It's really heavy on the computer because you have to use pretty high res images. But anyway, it works. Well, I like the effect, but it would just seem kind of like unnecessary, and I don't know that it really did that much in terms of like what you have to do to get to it, to what it added. But it's interesting to try. But I do wonder about that. Another thing, I'm talking to like some older school concept artists who go back to the 80s and that are still active to one degree or another. Um, And one of the things that was a big shift in concept art, because that's a popular area for a lot of people right now, is it shifted from creating inspirational imagery, where they would then get handed off to a production artist who would then build the mask or make the miniature, or these days build a 3D model or a mix of different things. And the concept art shifted from being an inspirational source to being like the final reference, the final statement of what something should be. And it meant that production people didn't have to be as creative about things. And it also meant that the concept artists had to really lock down, especially photographic styles for film. So rather than getting like amazing work you would get from like Mobius or Giger, right? Or uh, Ralph McQuarrie, or Sid Mead, or whoever, like these big shot people. Mary Claire, throw a lady in there. Instead of like using the artwork for inspiration and direction, it became just like the final say. And I wonder too if that kind of shift in the approach, because it also makes things start to look all the same too. Like everybody's like drawing the same way. Um, then reduces certain kinds of possibilities. But I wonder, like, if that too is like another big negative effect that the digital had, because it's so fast, relatively speaking, and because you can apply textures and things very quickly to make it feel believable or real. That that's better, lighter, that blue. Trying to do a little expressive color palette here rather than a realistic one. But because of that, and also I think it kind of closes doors on potentiality and creativity. And so rather than like looking for something new, they're just trying to run to a standard. And that's why you end up with movies like Jurassic World and Avatar and these movies that are, objectively not all that interesting or good or have like a long life value. Let's get some of this purple in here too. Um, that's better. But there we go. That adds that effect. I'm looking at this comic book page. It's kind of got this expressive coloring on it. I want to emulate that palette to a certain degree. I want to include some greens and things in there too, but I like kind of this yellow, orange to pink to purple to blue, kind of an analogous range. Pretty wide analogous range, but still analogous. Um, yeah, and then I also wondered the speed too thing is an issue, I think, too, because one of the things you find that happens when you're working on a project is that as you work on it, you come up with new solutions and new ways of doing things, or come up with ideas that you wouldn't otherwise and be able to anticipate ahead of time, because in the process of making something is where a lot of ideas happen. Yeah. So I think if you speed up that process of making something, you lose out on some of that potential for new things to happen. And I kind of think that might actually be one of the big harms, is that because you're moving so fast, relatively speaking, not that you can't, like a key art piece for, a key, not key art, but like a, what are those called? The, um, the big paintings they do for like well, again, like Riot, like, you know, background images for the game or whatever. There's a name for them, slipping my mind at the moment. But they'll spend like 80 hours on one of those paintings. I think, yeah, you could probably do, you know, an oil painting or an acrylic painting in that same amount of time at that same level of detail, actually. Maybe a little bit more time, but or you're seeing a lot of shows, they'll have like an art show now after the fact, and you know, it's just a bunch of prints of digital work. What if they had, you know, your sketchbook and your original paintings that you did and all that? That would be a much more compelling show. And then maybe they, you know, they can work out some kind of deal where they sell the originals. So imagine you worked on like Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, because they had a show attached to that too, like an art show in LA. It's like, what if, you know, part of the film's um, money is that they sold original work that was concept art for it, key art pieces and sketchbooks and sketches and things like that, and just as part of the general productions, people got to own like that piece of the film. Like people buy frames of animation, right, from Disney films or, you know, Warner Brothers or whatever. Oh, hello, Bosch. Had to come over here, huh? So, yeah, so what if they did that, right? And that would just be like a whole big arena for kind of new things to happen. And so, you know, they could put someone in charge of that. You know, wouldn't have to necessarily be the director handling all that or whatever. They could have a special producer that does that. All right. Some plants popping up in here. But I think, yeah, there's a lot of potential out there for interesting things to happen in the world that we live in. And yeah, but having like an art show traveling around for a popular movie, be a big deal. And if it was like traditional media, it would be really inspirational for a lot of people. I think more so because the digital they get easy access to on online. But if they did it, you know, in a more analog format, it's like, you know, like for example, there's this artist who's like he's designed all the dragons for How to Train Your Dragon. He did all the designs for like characters and things in you know, the panda movies, Kung Fu Panda movies, Nicholas Marley or Nico Marley Marlet, and he works all traditional. I don't know, you know, I don't know if he's still working or not, but you know, it's basically, you know, mostly on brown paper with colored pencil and whiteout and ink, and that's what he's designed. You know, these billion-dollar properties with, and you know, but yeah, I would love to see a show of his work, right? So he's got these amazing pictures, and then just, you know, put them in frames and put them up, and then, you know, now that they're done with them for the film, they could sell them. he could get paid, a portion of that. And I think there'd be a lot of interest in something like that. Yeah, it wouldn't be like the biggest part of a film's production budget, but it would get, it could enable them to also recoup um, pre-production costs. Using the sale of work, just like they sell props, right? Like you could buy the gun from Blade Runner, the tricorder from Star Trek. I think there'd be a lot of artists that'd be excited about that. It would also help them push the level of work that they do. One of the problems with the work for hire situation with concept art, so if you do concept art for any game company or a film, they 100% own the images. They can do whatever they want with that work. And it'd be nice if the artists could at least make some money off of like selling the originals, which would then give them a higher incentive to do even kind of more interesting and better work if they had some kind of secondary benefit from it. I think the incentives matter like that. How do you benefit from the things that you do? So makes me wonder some of the time. Like I have a friend who did a DVD Criterion Collection cover and designed the entire kind of package, etc., along with all the illustrations. And he's a really incredible illustrator, very professionally, very highly regarded, certainly more than me. Um, and he's doing stuff with that, so he's like doing like selling prints and probably originals and things like that related to it. Yeah, I like where this is going with the color. A little more expressive. So I don't know if anyone else thinks like thought about that, but I could definitely see that being like a big deal, or they could auction stuff off for a charity, or just seems like there's a lot that they could do with that. It's like people really appreciated a lot of the analog stuff that was being done for all the practical effects and things that are being done with that Hail Mary movie, which I haven't seen. I do want to see that in theater soon. Maybe if I get my chores done this morning, I'll pop down that way. But I like these rocks though, where they're going. I wanted to put in some kind of steps in the background. And imply that there's like a pathway going up over here. It'll get hidden by some things to a certain degree, but I'll have to go back to that last live stream. Try and get a screen grab of my drawing. Should have taken a picture. stick this here for him just as a reminder where it was at. We can see something here. So, but I could see with the AI thing just it being a big advent of new analog media. I think it would be an interesting kind of revolution. But I also don't know how long this stuff is going to last too. This generative nonsense, because it's so expensive to develop and maintain that I don't know. I don't know how well it can actually do in the long term. We will see. What people can do is they'll brag, well, I can get my own model and train it on my own work, but the model you're using is already trained on others' work. Like, so there isn't any such thing as like a good model. But I will hear that from people once in a while. Well, we've taken a model and then we've trained it on our own stuff, do things. Okay. Don't understand how that's really any better. How do we go with this blown out lights back there? I need to bring some of that down more. It doesn't stop at the top. Yeah, bring the stones up here. Path to walk. It's good there. How's that for some glow? Must have some good color reference. Oh yeah, you had a fine art school. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Where they do goofy stuff? Is that what you're trying to say there? Not my class, you wouldn't though. I'll tell you that. Probably get you expelled from my class, if not to school. A lot of students, they kind of go to art school expecting to learn like really traditional, hardcore, common skills, and then they end up just doing a bunch of nonsense that they did not anticipate. Before it got serious, what's so serious? Just, it's just art stuff, right? Or you don't get to do art. Let's see. So kind of that's a little further back, less detail back there. Somebody's working a lawn out there. Or maybe it's the house. They're building a house down. A couple houses down. It burned down a year and a half ago or a year ago or whatever. It's been a while. I don't remember. But yeah, they finally started building a new house to replace it. So they're working on that during the week. Let's disappear into the light. Shimmery Shim Shim Sharoo. I think that's from Mary Poppins. I don't know, an hour 17. We're doing good. Alright, in terms of things I can work on without my original drawing, these tree things here, we can work on these a bit. And then I need to go, like, actually collect my drawing back out of the live stream. Because it's just under the paper, so it doesn't exist anymore. But I'm just happy to feel better. I had a nice bout of COVID last week, and so I just didn't do anything online during the week. I was out of it all week long. It sucked, as the kids would say. I still had to get the dog out twice a day because he insists to get his WALKs every single day, no matter what. All right, this shall be dry. Um, there. But I got a lot of my online website chores done, so that's good. So I feel like I need more of this. This is the high flow medium that I like a lot. Makes a big difference for using these heavy body acrylics. Makes them flow a lot nicer. And then I think I need more of this yellow. Those are the ones that have gotten stiff. Get some target on there. It's a better angle to tackle that at. All right. On the other side, we're going to do some subsurface scattering. Edge on this side. Let's see, that's connecting right there. So I need to either push this back or push it forward. So we're going to push it forward. Avoid that tangent. Break this up a little bit so it doesn't line up too much with her head. color. Here, I'm trying to get more like an expressive color approach on. I still want like the light to read naturalishly, but I'm trying to get a bit more of an expressive style with the color. And transition edges. Maybe this one will go faster than the last one's going to. Alright, get some of this kind of still wet over there, but we can still do this. Let's see. Obviously, the figure is going to take a lot more time than this stuff back here that's fairly abstract. But I think this is a pretty good start. Getting back into refining this. Do need to go and grab the finished drawing and put that into my reference folder off of the live stream, just so I can see that. Nice and toasty in there. It's the power of having reference nearby, right? Alright, now let's get into the drawing the interior of this tree. So if I use some of this black paint let's put out. One of my favorite mixtures is using, well, oil paint. It's fairly red, black. They're really working it out there today. Something. I'll have to check it out. My dog is looking out the window. What is all that noise? But yeah, one of my favorite admixtures of oil paint is Perylene Red, which is like it's like a transparent red that's like the color of blood. And then I like to mix that with Ivory Black, which is a fairly transparent, neutral black paint. But so the acrylic, I haven't found quite the color that matches that. Been using alizarin crimson and black, which I think works pretty well. I thought about maybe wandering up to the art supply shop and seeing if they've got a soft body color that's pretty close to Perylene for acrylic. Maybe I should do that today. Because I really like that mixture together. For especially doing any kind of deeper dark rather than just using black. It was a spot to use straight up heavy, thick black paint, but it's pretty rare set of circumstances for that. It's feeling better. Like I can mix transparent oxide red in there with the black, but it's not quite. It's like a little too orange. They're working on something out there today. Made the dog curious. He's like, "What is going on out there?" He doesn't pay that much attention to what's going on outside. He's never been a big barker unless it's like a possum or a cat is chased into a tree or a raccoon. Though with cats, he's cat curious, so he wants to check the cat out, which cats don't always appreciate. He's like, I just want to say hi and meet you to see what you're about. Like you're kind of interesting. I don't know. Like I don't know how to put it in words, but curious about cats. I like cats. I'd get one, but I'm allergic, so. I cannot have one. I do like them. So. I just can't live with them. expressive color. So that's what we got going on today. Working on. Here to see what they're doing out there. They were framing the house over the week. Actually, I think some pictures of the crane thing that they're using. Have it for some paneling and things like that for 3D stuff. Variation in there, and the texture. Yeah, people are working on lawn. Sounds like they got a busy day out there. I think it's supposed to be nice today, so that's fine. It is Monday, though, right? It is Monday, right? Not Tuesday. All right, let's get first pass. Now we need to get some more of that bark color in there. It's gonna work with that blue, but blue's kind of be facing out toward us. And we want to get some moss in there too. Yeah, I was reading. Well, someone was telling me that, and then I saw it later. But basically, that Ralph McQuarrie, he likes to use cell painting, vinyl paint, vinyl cell paint, in his underpainting because it lies flat, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if that's a necessary extra step, but it wasn't something I was aware of. So I thought that was an interesting kind of note on tech. You can still get, it's not cheap. It's not as common as it used to be because people don't do a lot of cell shading animation. But they did with that Gorillas video recently, which I thought was interesting, where they used it to hand paint the cells. Should go back and watch that process video. They talked a little bit about like the different things they were doing with it, which I thought was interesting. But it was also weird, I thought, because they went through this trouble to like hand paint all the cells, but all the backgrounds were done digitally. I was like, why not do the whole thing traditional, or analog rather, as I prefer to say. get some green in here. Good morning. I'm so happy to not be sick anymore. That was a very long week. So I guess this needs to go that way. Let's see. I need some darker stuff, I think, in that. It's too, some larger areas of dark in here. Just too light. What are you doing for time? 1:41. All right, yeah, so 2 hours should be good. Good morning. All right, where was I? I was working on this. All right, so let's get some moss in the shadows. I'm gonna blue it up a little bit. Get some yellow ochre in there. There's certain colors that I definitely consider like workhorse colors, like things that I just use all the time or add into other colors. One of those is definitely yellow ochre. So it's darker. warmer. So put some black in there. So it won't impact. It will impact the temperature some. You didn't want to push it too chromatic. That should be a good color. Yeah, much better. Older one, and then sort of warmer. Especially over her hand. It'll be really warm. Same color over here. So all right, now to get a warmer green. Mix up here. Let me throw in some brown. So I haven't used any of that I've squeezed out so far. It's darker. Could be darker still though, I think. There we go. Nice and dirty green. Good morning. Happy Monday. My COVID vacation is officially over. It's feeling pretty good yesterday, and now I think I'm definitely over it. Well, really, I was over it day one in terms of not enjoying it, but I didn't get a choice in how long it lasted. So, welcome to cicada COVID season, I guess. Getting there anyway. A little harsh, but package. So I think we can go a little darker. Some of these areas. All right, that's better. Push that down a little bit. Just kind of glazing over on the side a little bit. a little bit. Struck my brush in my bucket. That is a deep bucket. Okay. Gross water. Oh, we got a bot over on Twitch. Let us dispose of him. There you are, bot. Let's see, let's ban you. And poof. And hey, that's your waste of time. Alright, now that's going to catch some highlights over here. Same as those ones. And then that'll be about 2 hours, so that'll be perfect. Give this thing a little bit of a twist. Rolls back. Edge up a little bit. Break it up. That's much better. And then some of this orange piece. A little bit of a lizard. Right inside these guys. Make it all shiny. Go. Intense color over that. Well, I think we'll be done for today. Much better. All right, much better. Maybe this needs to continue down just a little bit. Maybe grab just a little bit of that white on there, or the yellow white. Broaden that out just a touch more. Now we don't waste our paint too. Wasting some of it, but not too much. I think it's been 2 hours. Pretty good amount of time. Okay. It's a good start. Got a bunch of the background painted in. Help establish the lighting and the mood. And I think we're going to call it for today. So appreciate everybody that showed up. Please let me know if there's any questions out there, and we'll talk to you all later.